Okay.
Hey, it's Weird Wednesday. It's weird. Super weird times. Hello. Welcome to the Aslandy Show.
With us tonight, we have Randall Copeland. He is a man who defies words, and he's going to bring to us today wisdom unparalleled, revelations new and novel. Once a young lad growing up in a double wide is now himself a family man in a nice big fancy box. But it didn't happen overnight. Welcome, Randall, my cousin by blood, to the Aslandy Show.
What's up, man?
Good to have you.
Thanks, man. It's good to be here. It's
Hell
good
yeah.
to be on your show.
Oh, I couldn't be more delighted. And a cheers to you, my good sir. Ka-chink. Tell us, Randall, what are your earliest memories?
My earliest memories? You honestly want to know my earliest memories?
Do I not want to?
My earliest memory is my parents putting me in a room with my sisters and asking us which parent we wanted to go with when we were too young to make such a decision on our own.
Huh.
Yeah.
A riddled start.
Yeah.
Somewhat like my own. And
Yeah.
you chose?
I believe I chose my dad. I think a lot of us did. But as you know, our grandfather didn't put up with that very long. We went right back with my mom after that. So since he was an attorney.
He was, wasn't he?
Yeah. And he went
We-
to bat for his daughter quite a few times.
We share a grandfather and a grandmother.
Yeah.
I mean, that is far out. That's trippy.
Why?
I don't know. To talk to someone else and know that they are somewhat genetically related, it's trippy. It's psychedelic.
They say 40% of our personality comes from genes, so it's quite a large bit, especially considering how much of us is expressed. And if you look at a bee or other insects that are born and they know inherently all the processes that they need to survive and to support their community, you know, when their lifespan is a week and there's no possible way at all, even 1% of that information was not genetically derived from, it's pretty amazing, I think.
Well, that is amazing. No doubt. And then you think it's really only 40 because, like, what if you hang out with that person and then they influence you more? It's still genes, right?
Yeah.
Because it's them. The genes are why they are how they act in that way. Or it's like it amplifies with the social, right? Or something, I don't know. I'm riffing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
People rub off on you. I know that Jeannie changed me, and Gordon, from being
They're
around
both
them.
geniuses, though.
Yeah, they're
they're
really
very-
interesting.
Brilliant people. You know, I think all of us in the family kind of deal with the ramifications of high IQ, you know, of being a savant. Like, I look at other
like, eh.
people.
I heard your phone. Your phone is like, eh.
It's like, wrong answer. No, but I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not even trying to, I'm not trying to build myself up or anything, but intelligence is correlational to the degree that people suffer because of their intelligence, because
Uh-huh.
they can't be blissfully ignorant and stuck in their narrative, enjoying that type of existence.
So do you think there's like have you had times in your life where you felt like your whole like worldview and narrative of reality is just blown apart, and you just have to accept that everything you knew is pretty much a lie?
Oh yeah, for sure. Is that a rhetorical question?
I'm just wondering if there's like times in your life, like I imagine in the military, for instance,
Exactly.
you were exposed to things where you were enlightened, or you were, given new information
Yeah,
that, makes it for a more complex assessment or analysis or something.
I think if we chart our life according to our worldview, there's these pinnacle moments that I feel like you're referring to in so many words. And for me, like military indoctrination, for example, or just being poor before the military, was a completely different paradigm. Not having money for basic necessities, having to hustle for money to buy things that I wanted, even, from a young age. And just learning that was kind of how life went, and then joining the military and seeing, or being taught that, the harder you work, the further you can get, and that a lot of it is based on how hard you work. And then being indoctrinated into a different mindset where, you don't get paid to think, you get paid to do. So, having to succumb to authoritarianism is very different than having to succumb to the fact that the authority that you have to rely on is shitty authority. So you have to survive on your own. So that was a different paradigm there, joining the military. And then, we're indoctrinated. We're taught to believe that, racists are slightly melanated individuals with Arabic accents that wear white cloths as a single outfit and a burqa on their head. And those, we're taught that those are bad people. We're taught to identify them by their appearance. Then I'm sent to, and then I'm sent to war. And I'm heavily invested in the indoctrination. I'm heavily invested in this idea that terrorism is real and that there's, people that are really trying to destroy America based on the narrative that I was told. That's to say that there probably are people who want to destroy America in China, for example.
Well, I mean,
perhaps.
those like extremist Muslim sects, they openly say that's what they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if they're just like a CIA operation or something. I'm pretty sure there are. See, the thing, I think it's safe to say that we have created some actual real jihadists.
Oh my God. Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind, because, I'll give you one example. This is just one day in Iraq, right? Where genocide is what happened. Over 1 million people were killed. So in a very short period of time. So I remember we were cruising through a city in a convoy, and someone threw a grenade out in front of one of our vehicles. And when the grenade went off, it was a crowded street and we didn't know who threw it. And that's the first thing that I realized, is that we don't know who threw it. Well, as soon as I realized that, some soldiers in a vehicle 2 cars behind me start opening fire on people. And then once they started unloading rounds, everybody started unloading rounds. So there's no doubt in my mind that, you know, there was a lot of really bad decisions made that definitely create a lot of terrorists. Because if someone illegally occupied my country to steal my oil and trade my people's lives for that oil, for that illegal theft and insurgence, I would spend the rest of my life trying to track those people down and kill them, you know? So I'm not surprised that that's what these people want to do.
And what is
Yeah.
you kind of how confident are you in our sort of military apparatus and all the money that we put into that? Is that up to the challenge, you think? Or do you think that that's an actual threat still?
Oh, well, you mean, are there other superpowers that pose a threat to us militarily?
No, I mean the jihadism specifically.
Oh,
Like how much of a threat is that, you say? Like, do you think there'll be more jihadi attacks on U.S. soil? Or do you think that we have the right, like we're doing the right thing to
I feel like
stop
the
them?
fact that our own government reported that over 1 million immigrants came in the southern border without, you know, and slipped through the hands of ICE and other border security agencies. The fact that they admit that, right, which is admitting a failure, is a testament to the fact that terrorism is not a real threat. Because if that many people can come into our country undetected, then you would think that some terrorist organization would know that by now, because we're broadcasting it in the media constantly, and exploit that weakness. So I don't think terrorism is a threat really at all, honestly.
Do you think that
And
those instances where they catch people and apprehend them before they blow something up are fabricated, or do you think they're actually catching them? Like, I know one guy was going to blow up the Space Needle in like 2005 or 6, maybe, I want to say, and he got through Canada and he got through the border, but somehow he got stopped, or maybe he got stopped at the border or something. I think he got stopped at the border.
well, I think some of those cases are probably real.
But they just get caught. Because
Yeah,
there have been a few. I mean, I want to say like 10 over the last, since September 11th
yeah,
in total.
which is relatively, it's a relatively low amount. I think even before 9/11, we had terrorist attempts, terrorist
Yeah,
attack
well,
attempts.
they tried to bomb that same place in the 90s. Or I think they did bomb it. They led a bomb. There was a bomb that went off in a garage in like 94. Was it?
Was there?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they got one off already.
I'm not aware of that. Maybe
But
that's true.
it just only, blew up some cars and damaged it.
I do know that you know where we're headed.
Uh-oh.
We're headed toward conspiracy theories,
Well, have you seen those pictures of the cars on the bridges and stuff, like miles away from the towers?
No.
Oh, you got to check that out.
You know what's interesting is I went through explosives training. I went through explosive ordnance disposal school to be taught about weapon systems. There's like 18 months of training, being trained on how to identify and render safe foreign munitions to Chinese weapon systems, how to identify any weapon system from any country. And I came in contact with I need to speak a little bit slower to make sure I don't.
Yeah, make sure you don't say anything too wild. It is Weird Wednesday, though.
There are.
Let us in.
If you Google, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to Google what I'm going to talk about just to see if it's declassified, because it's been a while.
Okay, well, while you're doing that, we're going to ask the chat, ketchup or mustard?
Or we can move on.
No, I want to
Um,
know. This is why we're here.
So basically there's these weapon systems that are designed to be deployed from a long distance away, and they look like an aircraft, and they glide, but you can drop them out. You can drop them off the bottom of an aircraft from 200 miles away, and they can glide slowly through the air into a target. And there was footage that still exists right now on the internet of an unidentified thing that looks like a missile flying into one of the buildings. And after my training, and when I saw that video, the interesting thing is that I recognized the weapon immediately. I recognized it immediately as something that I had been exposed to. And in that moment, there was no doubt that this weapon had been one of the things that caused an explosion.
Now, could it have been... Sorry to cut you off, but could it have been like replicated using special effects or any kind of manipulation of the video?
Yeah, see, that's very interesting question, because there are videos that when you slow them down, the frames don't add up. The plane is basically disappearing without any fragments coming off of it into the side of the building. There doesn't appear to be any damage occurring to the building for the first 3 or 4 frames, and then all of a sudden the rendering becomes more accurate.
Well, here's what I do have to say. The investigation didn't seem to be forensic at all. What the official investigation, casting and not even saying anything one way or another. There seemed to be no account for any kind of video or physics or structural evidence of any kind.
A lot of the video was confiscated that could have proved otherwise, and a lot of us that have done research on it, and the hundreds of engineers that came together that were explosive experts, that came together to
You're
unify.
a part of that group. That guy, Richard, whatever. Can't remember his name.
Yes.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
We're both in that thing. It's a Facebook group.
What is it called? But
it's Scientists for a New 9/11 or
Truth. Yeah.
Investigation or something. Yeah.
Yeah. They changed the name, but yeah, there's just a lot of things. The building fell at free fall speed. Like, it's impossible unless you're blowing debris out of the way.
It's kind of one of those things where it's like, at this point, anyone who's not familiar with all of those things is probably someone who's just not like... If people who aren't aware of the irregularities there and the inconsistencies are probably not even, at this point, open to having their mind changed about it, you know what I mean? Just because it's like been there for so long. I don't know. Hey!
I think it has a lot to do with cognitive dissonance.
There's that. But there's also, that's probably the main reason. But it's also inconvenient.
It's painful.
It's inconvenient. And there's
what's really inconvenient? I mean, if we reframe if we reword inconvenience, what is that? That's an emotional response to information that we have, that we're rejecting.
Right.
That's inconvenience. Inconvenience is
exactly. It is cognitive dissonance. Anyway.
Yeah.
Or results in it. But I mean, the truth is so muddied up. It seems intentional. So that no matter what, the cards, that's like the deck is just rigged. Like everything's laid out.
I think a huge portion of it, probably at least half of the tyranny that's being imposed upon us, comes from the international banking cartel. So just for an example, our system runs on debt. If we produce enough revenue, then we qualify for a loan, right? We go to a bank. The loan only has to be put up 10% by the bank. I think it's even lower now. It's around 2%. The other 98% is spontaneously created at the Federal Reserve Bank. So what that means is that 98% of the indentured servitude that's being created in the loan is being spontaneously generated from nothing by a private entity owned by a group of elite families that have a contract with our federal government to produce our money. So we are stuck in a system right now that is built on debt slavery, and all of us are subjects to it. We're all indentured servants.
And there's solutions for that, but it's like everyone's so distracted by all the bullshit that it's not a common topic of discussion. Like, I can think of solutions. You know how you change that? You empower people to negotiate their wages. You know how you don't empower people to negotiate their wages? Pass minimum wage laws that make it legal for employers to pay hardly anything for labor, and set that as some kind of standard, and then watch people just fall into line. I mean, what's happened? People are working for way less than they should be making now. Way less. With inflation.
Yeah, people aren't getting raises large enough to keep up.
They don't
with,
negotiate
with
for
the
wages.
inflation rate.
For raises. They don't negotiate for a raise or a wage to begin with. From day one, they take the goddamn $10.50. You know, and it's just, it's not really the employer's fault. They're following the rules.
Well, I think we are moving toward a system that is going to inherently provide a living wage, but I also think that with that will come a lot more restrictions and impositions on our sovereignty, and our autonomy as sovereign individuals to, to basically just make the slave system even worse than it already is.
I'll tell you right now, Alex, the actual banking cartel families have nothing to do with the Freemasons anymore. They're so far. The Freemasons were like a bright spot in our history. That's just a forgotten memory now. Now they're just hanging out protecting their books. They don't have banks.
Yeah. So
I've been into the thing that fucked the Freemasons up was World War II, because the Nazis and the Soviets went and purged them all, so they lost like a shitload of people all over Europe. I mean, the Freemasons were up there with all the other. It wasn't just the Jews that the Nazis went over. They were going for a few different types of people.
I think when we get into times where they're heavily persecuted, they tend to go more underground and they hide a lot better.
There's also not a lot left of them after it. I mean, it really did. It did a number. They were better here in the U.S. They didn't get so messed up here. And they're such an integral part of our foundation. I mean, they're wrapped up in our Constitution. Many of those people were Freemasons, those founding fathers.
Here in Colorado State, our state crest is a Freemason crest. It's a pyramid with an eye on top of it. And here in Fort Collins, where I live, the courthouse and the state building and the county building are all on Mason Street. So they're not shy about letting everybody know who's in control here.
And well, they're not really in control anymore, though. That was so long ago.
I don't know.
It's a relic now.
I know a lot of what I've read. I've read a lot of conspiracy theories related to Freemasonry, but when I decided to take steps forward to investigate Freemasonry by going to lodges and attending meetings with people that you and I both know, I found it to be very different than I thought it was, you know. And
It is a lot different.
It probably appears that way because when you're just entering into Freemasonry at the lower echelons, obviously the esoteric data is not going to be presented. But from what I could see, they seem to be, you know, good. They seem to be good people. But yeah, so that, as I said, I don't know enough about it to comment on it.
I know a bit. I spent some time in lodges and libraries and ceremonies and just interacting with different Freemasons. I can't speak to other states other than Washington and California, but it's like another example is the Hare Krishnas. The Hare Krishnas also have a bad rap, but if you actually go hang out with those people and get to know them, it's really hard to like have a bad opinion of the Hare Krishnas.
There's a certain sector of esoteric information that's very specific that the world elite do not want to get into the hands of the general public.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why these secret societies exist. You know, and I feel like all these organizations have the information, and they, to some degree, maybe in a just slightly different form, which is why the layers of secrecy.
Right.
Because the slave system has to be perpetuated, and in order for that to happen, we have to have the programming. And if anything gets in the way of that programming, it's going to be deemed a cult, and it's going to be attacked by the power structure.
It also stretches back. Hi, Nimi. It also. Oh, she's not here yet. She's coming though. I can feel her. It also stretches back before history to Hermes Trismegistus. You know, like the Masons didn't fucking reinvent the wheel. They're one cog in a history of esoteric and occult schools. The idea that they should be singled out as being some kind of like one group who has some enormous amount of control today in 2020 to me is silly based on what I know about them. Where it's like the actual people in control are not called Freemasons now, they're called Raytheon, right? You know that company? They make weapons.
Yeah.
Or Halliburton. Or Deutsche Bank. Barclays Bank.
Goldman Sachs.
Sphinx Bank. Citibank. Wells Fargo. The big oil companies.
Oh, yeah.
These aren't... It's not like it was in the 1700s when... Like, at that time, yeah, the Freemasons were like... What would you call them? Like, social engineers. But now... They live in our streets, in like our architecture as like a... I mean, they don't get members. I'm just telling you, they're dying out. The Freemasons are straight up dying out. There's not. By next generation, they will be nobody. All they do is have libraries and do funky rituals now. And build like hospitals and baseball fields and shit.
The Shriners and stuff.
Yeah, like you're just like, I want to build a baseball field. All right. Yes. The Masons are dying out. No, they're not. I'm sorry. They should be. You should go join one of the... Yeah, oh yeah, totally. Like, for instance, the Mormon Church is an offshoot of Masonry. But they don't... The Masonic organizations do not, like, support the Mormon Church. Yeah. It goes one way there. It doesn't go the other. There's a lot of offshoots of Freemasonry that have become very fucked up secret societies, but the actual intact lodges of Freemasonry, at least on the West Coast, are as wholesome as you get. I don't think you can get a more wholesome group of people, aside from some like edgy jokes that they might tell. It's like
Edgy jokes.
maybe a couple racy ones. Couple racy jokes.
Something that's interesting is there's a few secret societies that are open about their esoteric information because their approach is a little bit different. You know, they're still not trying to target the public in order to expose them to the information to wake them up from the mainstream hypnosis, but their data is accessible, and that's the Rosicrucian Order.
Yeah, I know some Rosicrucians.
They're open
They
about their teachings.
They have, well, yeah, so are the, look, exactly. You're exactly right. These schools have existed and do exist. What's the misconception I see is their aim and their goal is a lot different. Their influence on society, too, is a lot different, especially today. I don't think many of those secret societies have much power at all anymore. I mean, the old people in the lodges I know are rich people, but they're retired and they're not like, they literally are there to drink whiskey and eat steak and tell funny jokes and hang out. That's like the extent of it. There's
Yeah.
not, it's not like any kind of control the world shit.
What do you think? See, what do you think the whole purpose of the system is? The Rosicrucian system, the Masonic
I
system.
mean, the Rosicrucians and the Masons base themselves off the Knights Templar, essentially, as far as I can tell. But that goes back through Hermeticism, Gnosticism, and the ancient prehistory of philosophy, of Hermetic philosophy.
What's
what?
the main goal and aim of Hermeticism and alchemy
To
and Gnosticism?
To transmute the individual, to create gold out of lead, you know, and that's the Freemasons' motto is to make good men better. Like, that is their motto. So that's sort of, it's built into their motto that it's a Hermetic tradition.
Do you feel like there's a metaphor there, turning lead into gold, or do you think that's a literal?
No, it's certainly a metaphor. That's our psychic. That's what Carl Jung would call individuation. The process of making conscious our unconscious contents and incorporating them into our actual personality to the point where we understand them. And the nice thing for the upside to doing that, from my perspective, is that you are no longer a vehicle controlled by your emotions. You actually have a relationship with your emotions that makes sense, and you can interpret and have a dialogue with, and learn about yourself, you know, and different aspects of your own motivations, your own apprehensions, your own fears, weaknesses, strengths, and incorporate that into something that's like a holistic, a more whole being, right?
I think when we start to talk about the experience of it, we start to lose people who haven't experienced it. And even by saying that, right? Even by saying that, we are probably offending the audience that takes it as a presumptuous, statement.
Alex knows
that would
what I'm talking
edify
about.
some people.
I know
Cool.
Alex knows. She's taking some mushrooms.
That was the most. Let's go back to epiphanies, right? The epiphanies
Yeah.
I've had. So another epiphany I had after I got back from Iraq, I had bad PTSD because, you know, I had seen people killed and had to numb myself to get through the 18 months. And when I got back, I couldn't smell or taste. And if I was in my car at a location that looked like a location, you know, or even felt like a location where we had been attacked, I would feel like I was there and I could smell it. And so I was having like really bad psychosomatic dissociation, and I was having flashbacks. And
Explain that to me. Describe that.
so basically,
Psychosomatic disassociation.
okay, it's basically when you're triggered by something and your brain, it's like the signal is given that you need to go into fight or flight, but your brain also knows that there's no imminent threat. So it knows not to run, and it knows not to freeze, and it knows not to fight. So the only thing it knows to do is give you amnesia and basically wipe your consciousness. So like if you've ever
And that's
zoned
without
out,
an agent, a medical agent.
yeah, that's just what your brain does when it's like
So that's
pure
a
cognitive
cortical.
dissonance.
So I know cortisol and the whole adrenaline and norepinephrine, epinephrine cascade. So it's like that, but then to like another level.
Yeah, so there's different types of dissociation.
Because that would be like
If
a
you have
rage. Like almost
Like,
everyone
well-
knows what it's like to be in a quote unquote rage, right?
in a state of dissociation, your self dissolves.
So it's
Your
not the same as
identity
just seeing
dissolves.
red. Right.
Yeah, no. Okay, so a dissociative identity, for example, just to give a context on dissociation, is when you are triggered in the same way and your memory is wiped, but then you engage in a manner that is more conducive to your survival in the situation. And some people develop completely different identities in those moments. So like if a woman or a man is raped as a child and they begin to dissociate because of that in order to block out the memories, they can develop an entire identity that is stuck in that age because the psychic data hasn't been processed. So in the future, if they feel like they're in a situation similar to that, they will turn into that person that is that age and that mindset in order to protect themselves, which is really
And so
strange.
is that just to ask a question here? That's related then to archetypal projection. Like, do you think that scenario you just described is kind of a common,
Yes, exactly right. Yes.
what do we call it, catalyst, or the
psyche,
event?
The psyche's fragmented, and so if it has enough psychic force, if the psychic force becomes large enough, it becomes a separate identity, similar to the majority psychic force, which is the personal self that we experience as the subject identity. So like when we experience trauma, our psyche is fragmented and a portion of it is exiled unless it's processed. The exiled portion, if it becomes large enough, will gain its own identity, and it will gain its own archetype and its own method of dealing with whatever stressors it correlated to the trauma that caused it to exile itself. It's quite strange.
Well,
but
there's certain language. This is something that disturbs me. There are certain gifts to our bank of knowledge as a society from the 20th century, psychologists and practitioners, but namely Carl Jung, that have the meaning of the terms and the actual terms themselves and the concepts attached to them have not survived into culture, like popular culture of our day. And one of the areas I see that reflected very prominently is in identity disorders and issues relating to identity. Because I think that people do not have language such as self, true self, ego complex, and all of these sorts of tools of understanding the psyche that help us to, I wouldn't necessarily say disassociate, right, but associate aspects of our consciousness in a constructive and understandable way. And I think it really does show in the issues around identity, where to me, an identity is like, and I said this in my to the last guy I was talking to, identity is something like a persona, right? It's how you view yourself and how you think other people see you. But that isn't, in like Jungian terminology, that isn't the same as yourself and your true self. And so I think that that's something that cheapens. There's an element of like our society today that's so materialistic that it cheapens some of the more religious and spiritual and metaphysical elements of our being, and is not very holistic. It doesn't take into account those elements, and sort of cheapens the individual down to something, an identity, right? Which is some sort of boiled down, like nebulous,
stereotype.
non-individualist thing. Oh, nope. Your phone says I'm wrong.
No, what's interesting, okay, I think we're all undergoing this process to integrate our unconscious and our conscious, with the intermediary being the subconscious, right? So to reach that individuation point. And if we don't have methods to speed up that process, then it has to happen and play out experientially. And so when we
like
slow
men
that
are
down,
lazy. We're lazy.
I feel like, yeah, well, we're not lazy, we're cowards, right?
We're
a lot of us,
lazy too. We need
That's
incentive.
true.
We need incentive.
A lot of us observe our fears and our apprehensions that the alchemists knew we needed to face in order to integrate with the deity, and they avoid them intentionally. And I feel like I feel like we're all a little pissed off that we're here, and it might have something to do with this whole
I'm
process.
happy to be here.
I'm projecting. I'm projecting, right?
I'm stoked.
I am projecting. But
I'm
like,
happy you're here.
I'm happy you're here too, man. I feel like the whole process is based on that, the life process. And that's the thing that the secret societies exist to protect, is that whole process. I feel like the ego's job is to put the brakes on the process.
Like that whole thing with the Library of Alexandria where they went and burned all them books, like people didn't forget about that. The Masons have books. That's one of the things they have. They got a dude, like just so you know how dorky these motherfuckers are, they got a dude standing in front of their library that holds a sword. Just standing there. He's got a sword.
What? Really?
That's their job, dude. So stand there with a sword and not let anyone burn their books down. And I've gone and looked in these libraries, and it's like fucking incredible, the knowledge that's inside those books. Stuff you'd never know. That's not on the internet. Those shits is beyond the internet, I'll tell you that right now. Way beyond.
That's awesome.
I was gonna get to Alexandria, Alex. Name drop.
I was getting to the epiphany. The epiphany was when I took DMT.
Psychedelic moment.
Yeah, I took DMT.
Psychedelics. Psychedelic warning. There's psychedelics coming in the stream now.
All right.
God dang. I think you smoked a little too much of that shit, man. Yeah, I would,
sad.
but I have.
No, I'm very sad.
So I had a moment where I was struggling with PTSD, and I was really being tortured by it, and so I needed to take a break. So I just left my family and went to Oregon, where I grew up, and spent time with my sister.
Get your phone off the desk.
Well,
it vibrates it.
Yeah, that's annoying, huh? It shows up in the video.
Yeah, it goes. Meh, meh. It's like you're wrong. Wrong story.
That's the wrong story.
Guess what I'm using to prop my phone up? That Super Mario cartridge. Super Nintendo.
Nice, dude. Wicked. That's old school.
Yeah. Um.
Psych Alex. Dude, this
Okay.
is fun.
Okay.
Dude,
So
Alex,
yeah, check
wait,
it out.
well, let me introduce you. She came late. Randall
Okay.
Copeland is my cousin. He's gonna tell us more wisdom. This guy's got more wisdom packed into his little noggin than in the entire fucking Encyclopedia Britannica. All right, tell us what you got.
One of actually, I should tell you about that. When I was 4, I got hit by a car. You know that? And I
I
broke my
wouldn't
leg,
call
and
it
I
hit.
had.
I'd say you hit the car. Did you see the other guy?
No.
That car was fucked up after hitting you, man.
Well,
You said that's your.
a
You should have seen the
I
other guy.
damaged my prefrontal cortex. So anyway, the whole point is that I have to focus a little bit harder than most people, but once the data goes in, it stays. Like I can access it always. It's not perishable. It doesn't go
Yeah.
anywhere.
No, that's one of our gifts as a family. We were like I can do, and I'm not trying to give it like you really. I'm not fucking patting myself on the back or anything here, but like I can look at like 10 different graphs, and it's some kind of like what would you call it? A photographic memory. I can overlay all of them over each other at the same time, just after having looked at them, but looking at none of them if I wanted.
That's sweet.
Because I just retain the information. It's to me, for my brain, that's just like walking or spitting. Just retaining a graph. Like I can memorize tons of images, no problem, and overlay them. But I don't know. I haven't found a way to utilize that talent in a marketed way.
Well,
I found out how to market it.
there's ways.
I think I just keep fucking playing music. I don't care.
So I'm gonna tell you about my DMT trip.
Wait a sec.
What?
Tell me twice, actually.
Let me tell you
No,
the whole thing
wait.
twice.
Wait, no. Don't tell me twice. Give me 1 sec. I have a new break screen. I want to try it out. Give me 5 seconds.
Okay.
More like 20.
Do what you gotta do, man.
Okay, wait. Tell me about your goddamn DMT trip. Where'd you go?
I'm here. What happened?
Your screen moved. But you got no
What'd you
camera
do?
again. Put your camera back on. There we go. Hey,
Well, I wasn't gonna sit here looking like an idiot.
how's your DMT trip?
So, I put some DMT on some bud and smoked
that
it.
shit.
Yeah, man. And let me see. Set and setting, right? I was laying on a really comfortable couch, and there was some Grateful Dead playing. I don't remember what song, but it was super chill. And so I decided that it was time to wake the dragon up. So I
Is the dragon
took a
your,
big hit at the end.
your actual dragon? Like, you want to talk about that dragon thing, or just skip over it?
Oh, that no, like just as a metaphor.
Because we
Riding
have
the
a
dragon.
Like, I believe in that. I've seen that.
You saw my post today?
No.
It's a dragon. It says, the post says every fear. It says every fear, or our list of fears, are names of dragons that we should slay, and the bounty of which is paid for with light. Anyway.
There's a concept in like magic, the magic world,
Yeah.
of a dragon, which is an extension of you. It's a bit like an elemental, because a dragon often takes on the form of an element, has an elemental quality to it. Like
Oh, okay.
someone possesses a dragon, and the dragon is a part of how they interact with the world around them. Everyone has a dragon, but to just make an analogy, most people's dragon is just like a little snake wrapped around the back of their head. But warlocks and people who are into magical shit learn to develop a dragon, and it's an actual thing. Like use it to do magic. But you have a dragon, and it's
I didn't know
like
that.
a Chinese. I mean, when someone's on psychedelics, a lot of times the energy starts to move around there. Like, have you ever looked at your own face or other people's face while you're on psychedelics?
No,
Never.
I've only done DMT.
Have you ever done mushrooms or LSD or anything?
No, I really want to do
Well,
psilocybin,
let's
but
get you some of that. But in any case, one thing you'll see this energy moving. You can probably see it on my face. Oh, you can't see my face right now. You'll see energy moving
Yeah.
around. Alex knows what I'm talking about. Alex, you know what I'm talking about? It's like, you know how under people's eyes and then towards their cheekbone and then like down and around their cheeks. Okay, here's a really good example. You know people who grow thick beards? You know how they'll have like spiral shapes in how the growth pattern of their beard is? You ever seen that?
yeah.
So that's like a naturally occurring thing even with people. Yeah, Alex says she knows what you're talking about. So this is like, I've never read any literature on this. This is not scientific. This is my own observation. But when I'm on psychedelics, I can see energy moving around on people's faces. How it moves.
Oh,
I think it's something like maybe evolutionary, you know, because it's consistent. And Alex Gray, you know that painter, he paints that. Or you know, you ever seen Day of the Dead artwork, like that skeleton face, and it'll have a bunch of flowers and like paisley kind of shit looking at it. It's a Mexican artwork.
yeah.
That's kind of like what I'm talking about, like those like curled features around people's cheekbones, eyes, jaw, face.
Yeah.
Dude, she's calling it hollow fractal, and I think that's exactly because it's definitely fractals. So what you're seeing there is actually you're seeing into the fractal algorithmic genetic biological makeup of the chi energy and the magnetic fields of the person themselves.
It's
and
interesting.
You get to see stuff like that when you're on mushrooms and LSD, and just because it's weird sensation or like experience because you know that was there the whole time, you just couldn't see it. Like there's no doubt in your mind that you're not hallucinating. What you're seeing is something is real.
I know when I took my hit of DMT and everything turned into sacred geometry that it was time to shut my eyes. So I put like what? I put a lot. I put like half a gram in my, and I think it only takes like 2/10 of a gram
I've done it a couple times.
Yeah, I think 2/10, even less than that, will do you good. But I really wanted to make sure that I it worked. So I did half a gram and I smoked it and took as big of a hit as I could. And then everything before, like as soon as I took the hit, everything started melting and turned into sacred geometry. And I didn't even know what sacred geometry was at the time because I had PTSD and I was still heavily programmed by the military indoctrination and trauma from combat. And when everything started to melt and turn into sacred geometry, I just remember like I shut my eyes and leaned back, and then when I did that, I could feel this love come over me in waves.
What do you mean by
Like-
love?
Like um like I don't know.
Because
I guess
you
love
know
is
how there's different words
different.
for love, like in Greek? Like there's agape, amore, all these different kinds of love.
It would have to be agape. It would have to be
Like a brotherly
just
love.
no,
Like
it was
it a love that had no... Here's a question. Was it a type of love that had no object? Like you could love a woman, you could love your child, you could love a belonging, but was it a type of love where there was no established object?
it was
for
like
that love?
it was like an elation, an
So like a
elated love.
euphoria?
Oh yeah, that's a good word for it. An extremely
So
intense
how does that
euphoria.
differ from just a serotonin release?
Well, for me, it doesn't really a lot,
It's
and
like
that
a
might be.
super serotonin.
Well, I did take. Actually, I have taken Molly, and it felt very, very similar.
They're both tryptamines and serotonin analogs, right? They fit into serotonin receptor, DMT,
Yeah.
MDMA, as well as LSD
How about that?
and psilocybin. All of them, as well as 5-MeO DMT, which I've never done, but I want it. It's the stuff from the toad.
Th-
I want to get
This
that
was
toad.
5-MeO that I took.
That was from the toad?
Yeah,
You did that? That's
Yeah.
not regular DMT, dude.
I didn't know that.
Okay,
Okay,
finish
but let
your
me
story.
let me
Finish
tell my
your story.
trip, dude. Okay, so I lean back in my chair, and this love is coming over me in waves. And when I say waves, it's like every time a little bit more comes, it's like it's like I didn't realize it until the time, but we're all stuck in this very low vibrational plane, or at least, yeah, we're all stuck in this low vibrational plane. And as that frequency changes, for our monad to leave its synchronization with our physical body, it moves into that higher vibrational pattern that love is, that perhaps serotonin and dimethyltryptamine also promotes. But I could feel the vibration changing after the love came. But it's important to note that the love kept increasing, and then I remember it being so strong that I was like, I don't really know what this is anymore. And then it crossed my perception of what love is, and it went like, I don't even know how much further. Like, it was like 100 times greater. So it completely enveloped me. And the thing about it is that the ego, I noticed, was the ego personification was lockstep with this vibration. So the stronger it got, the smaller my ego got, until I had nothing. I had integrated with the deity, maybe, as the mystics say. So anyway, that was really apparent to me as that love thing was happening. And so I started to cry because the love was so strong. And then once I kind of got my composure and realized I'm not in my fucking body anymore, I like leaned forward, and when I did, I came out of my body, and I looked in front of me, and there was this porthole that was swirling, and I just inherently knew that I needed to go inside of it. So I stepped inside of it. When I did, I was in a Markaba, and I didn't know what a Markaba was at the time.
Whoa.
And I was flying through the universe at an extremely high rate of speed, and I could feel light. I don't know really how to explain it. I could feel light, cold light, like showering over me as I was flying through the universe. And I remember thinking a thought, and the thought was, where am I? And as soon as I thought the thought, instantaneously to the thought, I stopped, and I was in the middle of the universe in the black void. And I looked back, and I could see the Earth, and it was tiny. It was like this big. And so it was basically my higher self saying, this is where you are. And then I thought, where am I going? And then I knew where I was going immediately. It's like the thought and the answer to the thought were instant and integrated with each other. So the cool thing is that my biggest desire has always been to meet or be with Source. Okay.
The Gnosis.
So the Gnosis. Yeah. Okay. I'm getting excited. Okay. So I automatically know I'm going to Source. So I'm like, cool. I'm down. I don't care what the fuck we're going through. I'm going there, you know? So I relax and I start flying through the universe again, and I'm going through these wormholes and coming out wormholes, and then finally I get there, and when I come up on it, it's this huge electric ball like you see in the store where you put your finger on it and it connects to your finger. But there's no glass, you know, it's like the real thing. And it has these electrical fingers coming off of it all over the place. And like I said, there's no question without an immediate answer. So I don't know a word that incorporates a question and answer simultaneously, but that's what it was. And so I basically asked, what are you? And it said, I'm you. And I said, what are you doing? And it said, I'm keeping everything alive and intact. So basically I understood in that moment that it was its tentacles were giving and taking life from different parts of the universe, and basically just constantly recycling itself and giving it back, lending it back to other places. So it was basically managing all the sentient consciousness and stuff. And so I just remember being so happy and content that I was there, that I just sat, and I knew that the DMT was going to wear off. And so I just sat and watched it and just tried to stay in that moment as long as I could. And I remember feeling the effects of the DMT wear off, because I could start to feel the vibration change. And that's another important thing. Before my monad, I don't know what else to call it, before my monad disconnected with my body, I could feel the vibration change, and it was like it went from slow and it sped up, and when it did, I could feel myself disconnect from my body, like, and so I could feel the vibration changing again, so I knew I had to go back. And so, you know, I started to come back. But then the thing is that it was kind of painful to come back. So I didn't really want to come back. So I started crying.
Physically or emotionally?
Well, see, as the love went, as the serotonin levels decreased, I guess you could say,
You spent them. You splooshed.
I knew that as I approached my baseline vibration again, it was painful to get back there, because I had gone so far beyond it that I didn't want to go back to that low vibrational state. And so I could feel the vibration slowing down. And I remember crossing the threshold of my perception of love again in the opposite direction. And I was just like, fuck, I don't want to fucking come back and do this. But
that's just your heart chakra.
Yeah, and then Christina, my sister, was like, Christina was like, are you okay? Because I was like kind of doing some weird shit trying to get back in my body, and I was like, don't bridge the gap between dimensions. And she's like, what? I was like, don't bridge the gap between dimensions.
Like
because she was talking. No, because she was talking, like, I was trying to tell her to stop fucking with me when I'm trying to get back in my body, but the only thing I could say is don't bridge the gap between dimensions.
That's a good t-shirt.
Yeah.
Don't bridge the gap between dimensions. That's that's the work of a shaman, is to do that by definition. That
So
is
you know
the
what else?
work. Yeah, continue.
Okay, so after that, I was super sensitive to other people's energy. Like, if someone walked past me, like I could feel, the closer they got to me, the stronger I could feel their aura, the energy they were putting off. And then when they would walk away, I could feel it go away. And so this was very odd to me because the day before I was convinced that terrorists were trying to kill all of us. Um, and so I went to a rock shop because I walked past this rock shop and I could feel just this wonderful, beautiful energy coming from it. So I went in it and I was looking around and like all the rocks and all the crystals, I could feel the vibration coming off of them. And I was drawn to this green rock. I don't remember what it's called. Tourmaline, maybe? No. But I asked her, I asked the person there, I said, because it really made me feel balanced. So I said, what does this do? And he said, that's for your heart chakra. And I'm like, okay, I want to buy this because it's beautiful and it helped me feel more balanced. So I bought it and I wore it, and it really helped me, like, I think kind of block my heart chakra a little bit because it was so strong. But I didn't talk for 3 days, and Christina was worried about me. And the reason I didn't talk is because I knew that feeling my throat vibrate was such a low vibrational thing that it felt bad. It felt gross. Like, it felt like shit, honestly. Like, that's the only way I knew how to describe it. And so she's like, why aren't you saying anything? I'm worried about you. I hope you didn't fuck yourself up on that stuff. And I told her, I broke my silence and I was like, my words are shit. And she's like, what do you mean? And I said, I have to vibrate my fucking throat to make a sound so that I can try to form a word so that you can try to understand what the fuck I'm saying. And I said, my words are shit. Because the love really made me realize that I didn't know anything. Everything that I tried to pretend like I was to be the best version of a person I could be was just fucking utter bullshit. So I felt like I had no place to make a sound,
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you think that could have been you reconciling the fact that telling the truth is nearly impossible? And just sort of
Yeah, for sure.
coming to terms
Absolutely.
with that intellectual truth, but on an emotional level, where you're integrating that into your heart?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I think that we can tell the truth. Like, I really do believe that. Let me put it this way. I act as if and live my life as if it is possible for me to tell the truth. And I hold myself to a very high standard of what that is and what my utterance convey and whatnot.
Yeah. I think what it did is it gave me a connection to the point through which truth comes to a person. It's just like you spoke about before, when the intellect transfers over from the primary mode of being to the primary mode of translating the noumenal expression of phenomenal activity. The emotion that's coming through the heart, that's integrated with nature, that is millions of years old, that led all the way up to this, versus the empty slate with the information written on it that came from this one lifespan. Taking DMT and reconnecting my heart showed me that my intellect was complete fucking bullshit, and so my ego had to basically surrender to this force that it wasn't even aware existed. It had to become a servant, and it was not happy with it. But I slowly acquiesced to my heart. And so I believe the way that we tell truth is to stay centered in our heart and to allow our mind to humble itself and very carefully translate the energy that is coming through us.
I love it. Reminds me, for some reason, it might be a non sequitur, but it reminds me of in the Nag Hammadi, in the Gospel of Thomas, they asked Jesus, should we give alms? How should we pray? What kind of diets should we observe? That kind of thing. Like, how should we live? And the first thing Jesus says, and it sticks with me forever, is do not do what you hate. That to me relates to telling the truth.
Yeah.
It actually means to tell
That's
the
funny.
truth. When he says
Yeah.
do not do what you hate, I translate that to mean do not be what you despise. Do not act
Yeah.
through your words and through your actions in a way that betrays that which you love, like what you're talking about, the love.
Yeah, man.
That sense of love that actually orients you towards the truth. And it's not the other way around. It's not the truth that makes you love, because the truth is foul. The truth is deranged and contrived and derived and conceptualized and ad nauseum, right? It's beaten to the ground. The truth is like this withered flower now that needs to be watered. Do not do what you hate.
Yeah.
I love that advice. It's just one of the best pieces of advice you can give someone.
I feel like that's the nature of what they call sin, that has, sin, just like God, is a non sequitur for most people. And it carries a very bad
Has like a
connotation.
religious connotation. Instead
Yeah.
of its actual connotation, which like you regret. Something you regret
When
doing.
when we do something that intentionally hides and squelches, which that's a radio terminology, that basically muffles who we really are, our heart, in order to protect ourselves, we actually cut ourselves off in the process. So the projection itself that of our archetype and our personality that we put off onto other people in order to protect that core state is, we believe it's the process of protecting ourselves, but really it's the process of cutting ourselves off from the truth in the exact same fashion that we are juxtaposed projection is being projected. So I always say that the ego is the precise distance that we are from truth at any given moment. Because it's just opposed.
From the Jungian standpoint, the ego is a construct. Like, it's something that our psychology, and it has a necessary function. We need to have an ego to have a name and to be able to interact with other people in a social way. It's required. To do so without it is being a sociopath. It's like you know what I mean? Like, that's how a sociopath is able to act the way they do. Is because their ego and their super ego are detached, right? So there's no, like I said earlier, motivation. Men need a reason to do something. We're lazy creatures by default, I think. That's my theory. I think that without motivation and left to our own devices, we are generally lazy. We tend towards cowardice and laziness as our two primary go-tos. And if it weren't for that the yin yang of the dynamic relationships between men and women, I don't think we would have made it where we are. I think we would have been a lost species, dead. I think that and it's an interesting standpoint, but I think that the female half of our species is the motivating factor. Like, they are the reason that shit gets done.
Yeah.
And
I can agree
with
with
them,
that.
men would just sit around and we would have. We need that dynamic because we need to feel useful. And I don't know how exactly that plays into what we're talking about, but it does in a way, because there is like a base element of the genetic reality, the biological reality of life, where if you're not living up to certain thresholds and standards, you're gonna feel bad, and that's true for men and women.
That's the anima animus relationship
Right.
that is unconsciously drawing us to the other, because the unconscious in the feminine unconscious in the man and the masculine unconscious in the female draws the man to the unconscious of the woman and the woman to the unconscious of the man, so that in the other they can seek their own liberation and their own individuation. And that's a natural allure that we have for our own spiritual evolution that I think is hidden in the other in order to maintain that connection. But I also believe that, you know, gender identity and um, and all of that plays a huge part in it too. You know, I see that there's feminine males who have masculine in their unconscious, and vice versa for women. So I think it's just a matter of pairing up the extroverted archetype of the man with the unconscious of a woman or another man, and the
That's
extroverted
actually
archetype.
that's an interesting thought I was having, which is that, like, because a lot of people say that there's a feminization of our culture, of masculinity in our culture. That's a common thing that people talk about, but I don't actually think that's precisely what's happening. I think what's actually happening is a materialization, so that as our culture becomes more materialistic, we actually lose track of the metaphysical and, like, evolutionary and spiritual elements that make the two sexes different, and like on a biological, spiritual, and philosophical level. And what's happening is it's not an androgenization of our actual sexual proclivity, because that is unchanged. Like, we're gonna still have 99% straight men and women. Like, that's just, or not 90, whatever it's 90 something percent, whatever. What is changing is our language and the way that people conceptualize these things is changing. And it's changing in such a way that it's a shift towards the material and away from the metaphysical and from the spiritual, and completely discounts the absolute truth of the differences between the sexes. Like, there is knowledge to be had in that when not accounted for, it's just you're gonna end up with kind of bogus conclusions, basically. And that's what we have now. It's sort of a society that's built on bizarre conclusions based on wrong assumptions relating to sex and identity and all these things. And I think it relates to what we were talking about earlier, where these concepts they're not understood. Concepts about what an identity even is, what a persona, a mask, what is the creature we wear on our exterior, because that is not you. And the fact that we have people who today would say that they have a pronoun, but they're not talking about their true self, is disturbing to me, you know, because that's outside of the, like, what I would say is a holistic and therapeutic, approach to identity disorders, which, if anyone is dealing with anything related to their identity, that's an exterior psychological phenomena. That's not their true person. And I think that's what's the beauty of, 1700s Freemasonic Enlightenment philosophy, is the idea that every individual is unique and has the ability to reason for themselves, and that's a gift to them of divine nature from God. I think think that's one of the most potent and important ideas that we could keep alive, is that you are an individual who can think for yourself, and God, and it's because God said so. It's that fucking, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, we're all born naturally sovereign, as you know, as a duplicated proxy of the most absolute truth that any of us could ever hope to find. You know, we're all integrated with the phenomenology.
Right.
So really, there's nothing. And that's the thing, is that this instrument, this body that we're using, that's been refined over millions of years. So, you know, a lot of people discount observational evidence and other types of evidence that aren't purely scientific, but we're using the most advanced, sophisticated instrument ever created. And really, all the instruments of science, although the methodology is the best we've ever had, no doubt, pale in comparison to the instrument being used to look through the instrument and use the other instrument to come to scientific conclusions. So I think we severely underestimate the instrument that we're using to
I mean, what
experience.
The fuck is deja vu?
Well, I think I know what deja vu is. I don't know that I know.
Creepy. I'll tell you that. It don't leave
Well,
you with a good feeling. Like, you don't walk away like, that was fun.
I just had some deja vu. That was fucking awesome. No. You know, Brian Weiss?
No.
Brian Weiss is a therapist who specializes in hypnotherapy, and that's always been his thing. And he started experiencing different things with his patients when he would hypnotize them and speak directly to their unconscious mind. When a person is hypnotized in a very specific state that you can measure with a device, you can tell what brainwave state their brain is in. You can speak directly to their unconscious mind without any interference from the conscious or subconscious mind.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, it is hypnotism. It's very refined hypnotism.
So I have an experience with this with trance states. But I don't know that it's the same thing, because I never had someone to ask me questions while I was in one of them.
It is the same. Well, I don't know what you mean by trance state, but I know that when I do transcendental meditation, the brainwaves.
State.
Yeah, you can reach it in a meditative state.
I can also influence reality around me. I don't want to try to fucking make weird claims, but I can, at least with a card deck, 52 card deck, with a very high level of accuracy, I can choose a card and cut the deck to that card when I'm in this state.
I don't doubt that.
I don't even.
There's a college.
It's not really like something I do consciously. It's like something that requires it's like you said, it's a different vibration of. It's like a different brainwave vibration. Because this is the thing. This is how I learned about it. I don't know if you'll find this interesting. You know the game Cribbage? Our family plays it.
Yes, yeah. You told me this story before, actually.
Okay, I've told you about this. Well, this is like part of my evidence, just my own anecdotal evidence, that some element of our consciousness transcends our own temporal relationship with reality and that which is around it. Absolutely. What is little off from? Oh yeah. What's the mother of invention? Tell us, Alex. While I'm telling my story, tell us in the chat what the mother of invention is. Okay. So.
Necessity.
Trance states. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I noticed in the game of cribbage, because I played it a lot, there's a certain mindset that I could be in that was very like, the only thing I could word I could use is egotistical or like conscious, super conscious. Where I would be like invested in how the cards are dealt out. And whenever I was in that state, the cards that I get were shit. I could always get terrible hands. And so I started
Yeah.
to like do this thing where I try to psych myself out of thinking about it, the game, and
I do that too. Yeah.
just like clear my mind and think about nothing and get into what I'm talking about, this trance state. And then the deals would be really good. And the cool thing about it is if I was ever in that deeply, there's this part of the game where you cut the deck for the card that's shared by both people. I would be able to cut, I'm not even kidding, any card I wanted with a very high
Dang.
accuracy. And it was
See, I think
just the one that was for the game. But it was just, for me, just to cap it off, it wasn't me, it was the cards doing it. Because in
See,
the
I think
state
the
I was in,
system.
I wasn't, there was no ego. The state I was in was removing the ego and allowing the cards to decide. And this, I was actually an extension of the cards, basically. So just
Yeah.
learning to get into that meditative state has, it just showed me that that's a thing, I guess. I've learned about that.
Yeah. See, there's something really interesting there. Like the desire of want, the attachment that Buddha spoke of. If we pay really close attention to the vibrational frequency of it, it's almost exactly juxtaposed to the feeling of an open, receptive heart, right? And so I think that the opposite of the open, receptive heart, which is the desire that is being impeded on the experience as the attachment, is the thing that causes, it's the process of manifesting the thing that we don't want.
So do you think
But
that
we
could
don't
be,
see it that way.
do you think that could be boiled down? I've thought this same thought. Do you think that could be boiled down to just the desire to change other people in reality as like one of the most driving forces of evil? Just like, because think of it this way, if every individual was entirely content to themselves, they would never be evil.
Yeah.
So my theory is that all evil is actually driven by the desire to change reality or people around you in reality and to manipulate them in such a way that they are not. Because as long as
Yeah.
everyone is happy with being in equilibrium with everyone else around them, there would be no reason to do that. So it's just like, I don't know, do you think there's some, that's kind of Buddhist too, you live,
Well, that
but
makes
it's the
sense.
same as live and let live. It's like the most simple philosophy.
I think, the wheel of samsara, I feel like comes into play, and karmic relationships, so there had to have been, I think that might be where the whole story of Adam and Eve came from. Not to bring that up again, because I'm totally not about that.
I like that story.
But like, it somewhere along the line, in order for karma to be, it had to have started somewhere, so I think we're always going to have people learning on the giving and receiving end of karma, and as those relationships transform and replace each other, as monads move from body to body, there's going to be consistent acts that are performed that are negative, and consistent acts performed that are positive. And what the end goal is, I really don't know, but I do know that when Brian Weiss hypnotizes his patients and speaks to their unconscious, they openly speak about their past lives. Every person that he hypnotizes and connects with their unconscious mind.
How do you know they're not just catching on to like a radio
suggestion
station?
Well,
Like,
there's
any one of us could, a living person can do that. So I just never, or we can all do that where people can communicate with the dead.
Yeah.
So I just never I always wonder if like past lives are just you remembering other people's lives.
That's a good question. Because another thing that he experiences in his sessions is people speak fluently other languages that they've never been exposed to in their current life.
That happened to Philip K. Dick. You know what that?
Who?
Philip K. Dick, the science fiction author in the
No.
mid 20th century. So he had
I'm gonna write it down.
an experience where a pink laser beam hit him while he was driving,
What the fuck?
and it taught him Latin, and he started speaking in Latin, which he'd never known. And he started seeing
That's
Latin
interesting.
Roman architecture superimposed over everything where he lived. And he learned that his son had a rare stomach condition that was fatal. And he took his son into the doctor, and it turned out he actually had.
So there's some interesting things, some interesting practices that have been shown to be effective in psychology. If you want to go into that.
Yeah, what is it?
One of them is to, when you're in that trance state, you can create an environment.
Your video's
and I froze.
Yeah, you're just like a frozen Randall.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but your video's that.
Can you hear me?
I hear you guys.
Aslan.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great. You still there? Oh, you're getting a weird... The government doesn't want us talking, Alex. This happened last time we talked. Hey. Government. Let me talk to my cousin. Yeah, his phone died or something. Technical difficulties. Check out my new break screen. Just made it today. Isn't this guy cool? Alex, what do you think? My cousin, dude, he's one of the coolest guys I know. Trippy. Hey, I needed a beer. I just cracked it. Ah, let me go into the screen. Hey.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
My
It's
bad.
just your internet died while you were walking through your hallway.
Are we still live?
We are.
Okay, cool.
We're just on this cool screen I made. Alex, you like my Be Right Back screen I made? I keep making new shit.
I moved closer to the router.
That's what she said. that's a stretch, but it worked. It did work, kind of.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, when we're in that trance state, we can create an environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can materialize it inside of our psychic
Right.
space,
That's cool.
and then we can start putting stuff in the environment, so that when we go to meditate, we're actually in an environment that's been solidified by our conscious. It's useful actually for various different purposes.
Yeah, but how do I add your screen back here? Hold on one sec. God damn it. Window. Interview. There it is. A difference. There he is. Hey. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Here it comes.
What's happening? How many people are on?
Looks like about 3. 3 people watching us right now. But this is gonna go on YouTube, where the whole world's gonna know what you're saying. The whole world's gonna know.
That's not good. No, it doesn't matter.
It's okay.
I don't give a shit.
Mind Palace. Tell us about the Mind Palace.
Oh, the Mind Palace.
Yep.
So yeah, when you go into a trance state or you're meditating, you can create an environment by visualizing it, and then you can solidify it in your mind by with what they call tapping. And tapping is just a way to synchronize the left and right hemisphere of the brain, which basically saves it in your database.
Is that what happened with my dream worlds, where I have consistent places?
Yeah, like if you do, there's a breathing technique where you breathe in through one nostril and out through the other, and that's what they call bilateral stimulation. And then there's also what they call tapping, where you put your arms like this and then you tap each elbow like that. So like if you visualize something and tap, it basically it saves it into your mind. So like if you're studying and you tap, you'll never forget the stuff that you're studying if you use bilateral stimulation.
So use that bilateral stimulation, that visualization, that tap. Be right back.
Yeah, man, to get rid of that pew pew.
Pew 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 pew.
Yeah.
Pew 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 pew.
Yeah, man.
Wednesday.
We're here. It's the
So what else?
Family Weird. Keeping it weird. TSND show. With us today.
We have Randall Copeland. Again, tell us, what happened after you joined the military? I'll go take a week because I already know this part.
Oh,
Tell
I
him.
mean,
Tell
basically what
Alex
happened. So I got on a bus, and it took me to Georgia. I was going to Fort Benning, the home of the infantry, and I was pretty poor at the time, so I didn't know what I was getting into though. But anyway, when I got there, they shark attacked us, and what that means is they just started yelling at us, getting in our face, and and they're really big dudes, built like brick shit houses. So to have a really big person in your face that can kick your ass is intimidating. That's just the beginning of the process of breaking people down. So basically want to break everybody down using fear, and then
during like a 1 to 2 week phase, and then what they do is they indoctrinate you. They give you information. They give you rules about what you're allowed to do. Actually, there's several cults that have used the same tactic, and I think they got it from the military because the CIA perfected the technique, and it works really good. They break people down, they build them back up, and then they give them a new identity. And their identity, your rank and your last name. So then I go to my tech school. They teach me how to do communication stuff. And then I graduated that. That was bullshit. And then I went to Fort Hood was my first duty station. I was assigned to a helicopter unit, 3-6 Cavalry Division, which was Apache helicopters. We were putting kits on Apache helicopters to give them new radar systems that were capable of scanning the battlefield and identifying threats and categorizing them. Just really, really crazy technology that basically tells the pilot what's a threat, what's not a threat. And the helicopter will even, if it's set to the right mode, the helicopter will even shoot at targets without the discretion of the pilot. If
That's like that footage that got released by WikiLeaks. Remember that? Of the journalists?
Oh yeah. Where they shot the.
So
They
it
shot
had
the
their
guys on the truck?
names. It had their names and who they were displayed.
Yep. When I was
next to the targets there, right? And it said they were American citizens and that they were journalists. Like it said their name, it said everything about them.
Damn, I didn't see that.
You didn't see that thing?
No.
That was like the thing that broke WikiLeaks into the mainstream like 20 years ago. Or whatever that was. That was like because the pilots were laughing about it. That's what was like disturbing to people.
Yeah.
Is that they knew they were not jihadis.
Yeah, we had
That's
had
tough, man.
we had a reporter that they took his equipment and locked him in a room with a guard because he was gonna report information about a mission in which children died.
And then what happened?
He was in a convoy. There was an ambush, and like I said before, they started shooting people, and women and children died, and they got it on camera. And when they got back, they asked him if they could see the footage that he had, and he tried to hide the footage that he actually did have, so he could get back to the States with it. And when he was caught, they locked him in his room, destroyed all his equipment, and and then they sent him back. So I think when they identify reporters that they know are trying to report information that is damaging to the commanders in charge, the commanders in charge can make calls to have them killed because they're in a combat zone. Yeah.
That should never be sanctioned or paid for by the U.S. taxpayer. Not one bit. And that's the kind of truth you're going to hear and hear only on the Aslandy show. We get guests you've never even heard of that have more information about this world and the way it works than I do. And I'm going to pick their brains.
You don't see me on Joe Rogan's channel. Fuck that guy.
He's cool.
This is Aslandy's.
Aslandy's. Coming.
Joe Rogan don't have shit on Aslandy's.
This is episode 2 of the Aslandy show. Let's go. We chillin' hard. I'm like a bard.
Here, let me show you
I'm
something.
gonna sing to you. I'm gonna sing to you, my Aslandy's crew. Baby, baby. That's who I am now, baby, baby. I'm
What are you
singing
doing?
to your Randall, baby, baby. Wanna hear what you got to say, but before I get in the way, let me just say, hey, baby, you're looking good now, Randall.
Never mind. I had like
Hey,
a
that's my song.
finger hash ball the size of a fucking 8-ball. Anyway,
Mind Palace.
Mind Palace. Yeah. Okay. So here we are.
Take it away.
I don't know. What do you want to talk about? What about
Let's
COVID?
move on into the when you got back and working on PTSD and other veterans.
Yeah, man. Once I did DMT and I realized, once I started coming out of it, I realized there was a lot of people stuck in it and they had no hope of getting out of it. I met Vietnam veterans that were still suffering because of it. I met, like 20, 25 years later, their mind is still fucked up and they're still being tortured because of the indoctrination and the programming that they received that disconnected them from themselves. And I started getting really pissed off. And then I looked at the suicide rate and it was 22 people a day. 22 veterans a day are shooting themselves in the head because they don't know how to unfuck themselves.
Now
and so
here's
there's just
my layman's answer. If I had to be the random dude you asked me, what do you do? Here's what keeps people alive. Meaning. Duty.
Viktor Frankl, man. Viktor
Duty.
Frankl.
And a relationship to the divine, to a greater power.
With your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christos.
That's what keeps people alive. A sense of purpose, duty, meaning, value, whatever it is. And we're not given that because it's not a commodity. We have developed a sort of fucking parasitic and unsustainable type of capitalism.
Yeah.
That focuses on the bottom line above principle.
Yeah, man.
Above the principles of actual. And then we see it in the way that, big tech and big media organizations have their way with the truth and be able to lie to the American public freely without recompense. There's no value there. They don't have to tell the truth. Our society's not. The form of capitalism we've produced doesn't incentivize them to tell the truth.
It de-incentivizes truth.
Yeah.
You make less money if you're honest.
Yeah.
If people know your product isn't worth $100.
Exactly. Even in my humble field, I'm sure I would have been more successful if I would have kept my mouth shut.
Dishonesty has a direct effect on people's success, and it's usually positive in the vast majority of cases.
And that's that weird question where you're like, when does not saying something become equivalent to telling a lie? Like, when do you have a duty to tell the truth that supersedes the convenience of not telling it?
Yep. They say when tyranny, this is kind of an unrelated quote, but it's similar. When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes duty.
I paraphrase this because it's not the same as what George Orwell's. I've changed a George Orwell quote to my own liking, and it goes like this: "It is the duty of good men to continually state the obvious."
I love that.
That's true. I believe that's true.
Yeah, I mean, it touches on how intelligence really is just basic common sense, when you
Right.
remove all the bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not even intelligent for stating the truth. We're just not mind fucked like the rest
Right.
of everybody.
We're just stating the actual obvious facts in front of
We're,
us.
we're, we're just at the baseline and we're considered smart because of it.
At 100 IQ.
Maybe this
I've
is
taken
this
so many
isn't the
IQ tests. I've
kindest
taken like
thing to say.
5. I don't even want to say what the numbers are, but I don't think they're accurate. They vary, the results.
See, that's the thing. When I try to contemplate my existence, I always do it. I always fail to
Hey,
account.
Nimi's here. Sorry, keep going.
I fail to account for how many factors are imposed on me by forces outside of my control, and how much that plays a part in my perception of my own existence. Like the banking system, for example, and the government that we were born in and under, for example. The meaning of life incorporates a lot of things that are being imposed on us. And so they inherently shouldn't be a factor, but they are.
I mean, I think to a certain extent that is of natural consequence still. Like, it's not contrived. Like, I'm of the mind that our civilization, our society, is more an attempt to adapt to nature than nature is something that is determined by our will. Like, I don't think that humankind has a lot of will over nature. I think that we adapt to circumstance and reality as we need to survive and evolve and communicate. And sometimes we get taken advantage of by other humans or by celestial forces or by our own tricks of the mind. Like our constructs of our own making can do as much damage as a natural force. I would trust my fate in the wind to that of the whims of a delusional person. I would take nature over a tyrant who is drunk on their own power.
Absolutely. There's
Even
true freedom
though-
in nature.
Even though nature is a tyrant of its own. I mean, if you think about it, the constraints placed upon us by nature are greater than that are by man.
Yeah. But man will always try to control the container within which he's
But
trapped.
that's all we can do is adapt. I don't think that we are the driving force. I think we are an adaptive species. So I think the whole idea that our essence and our being as creatures is somehow defined by the societies we create is a folly. Like, that's a wrong assumption. I think that the societies we create are adaptive to suit our evolution and our survival in nature, and not the other way around, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's a popular opinion today.
Well, I mean, with global warming, with
Maybe it will be.
with the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere being higher than it's ever been.
I mean, carbon dioxide is good because it promotes greenage. Like, the more carbon dioxide we get, the more plants we get. We just don't want monoxide and methane and shit like that.
Oh, yeah. I see what you mean.
I don't think the carbon dioxide, I think that's kind of like oversimplified, personally.
That's because I said it.
Not just you, just that's like the
No,
that's like the
it
going
is.
thing. I think carbon dioxide is a good thing. Like, we should make as much of it as we can.
Yeah, to promote growth.
It makes plants. Makes them healthy
Carbon.
and big.
It's how the carbon gets back into the
Yep.
tree of life.
We want them. The dioxide is good. We don't want that monoxide. That's just poison. So okay, you did the DMT trip, and then you started doing the Million Man's March, or what's that thing called? The Soldiers
The
March.
million. Oh, you mean I started helping out with veteran therapies, and I started helping veterans start to see that there's a different world, beyond the programming, which is powerful stuff because it changes people's lives, and then they can move on and change other people's lives. They can discover what gift they have that they can give to the world, and they can start giving it back instead of, coping under the stress and weight of their own mental suffering.
Okay, no. Okay, go on.
All the energy that we use to resist our own mental state can be turned inside out to be applied to something in direct correlation to how much we are suffering. So those of us that have mental illness that are in a digressive state, as in we're killing ourselves, or we're suffering so much that we're not productive in the way that we feel we can be, or all of that energy can be turned outward and used for something else. A lot of people are in a digressive decay because they're suffering mentally,
So
And they
what
don't
do you
know how to
call
get
what
out of
I'm
it.
giving a diagnosis here? What do you call what I'm doing? I call it the ball of glory, like going out in a flame.
What
Like I want to
exactly?
go big and hard. To
That's
the
what she
end.
said.
You know what I'm
That's
saying?
what she said.
Is
Yeah.
that digressive, or is that just assertive?
No. If you feel like if the energy inside you has a desire to maintain a high level of tenacity, and you don't feel like it's due to a negative, you don't feel like it's due to a avoidance of something else, and that's really what your true nature is, then fucking,
It's just curiosity and creativity.
Yeah, just do what you feel like the energy wants to do. Everybody should be
No holds
themselves.
barred.
It's what I have a problem with is when people are programmed to think in a specific way, and it's oppressive, and they get stuck inside those belief structures, and it ends up fucking their life up because someone else decided to manipulate them with it.
And that happens with politics, that happens with religion, that happens with family politics and dynamics. That happens with
the mainstream
workplace dynamics.
The mainstream paradigm is just if you duplicated that and applied it to every single facet of life, I think we're all programmed in some way to think that this shit is normal, but it's far from fucking normal.
I think there's a part of us that wants to make it normal.
What is the quote? It's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society.
Right, I love that. Is it Einstein or something?
No, it's Krishnamurti.
Oh, okay. That's Einstein said something similar. He said, You can't come up with a solution using the same thinking that you used to create the problem."
Yeah, I love that. That's funny. And then he also said that judging a fish's intelligence by his ability to climb a tree.
Makes all
basically. Oh yeah.
He said something.
He said we're all geniuses, but if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. Yeah. That's beautiful.
There's
I
a
think.
genius that's. I actually came up with a quote. What do you
What
think
is
of
it?
this? Just the other day, it's a child is a person whose intellect outweighs their motor skills.
Oh, I like that.
It's kind of a similar sentiment as the
I'm getting
fish
myself.
climbing the tree thing.
Yeah, man.
I think there's more lost. There's more we unlearn than what we learn. Because what we learn are facts and data, but what we unlearn is actually it's in the another thing in Gospel of Thomas. Jesus says, "Do not hesitate to ask a child of only 9 months about the place of life."
Huh. Oh man, that reminds me of something. Growing up, I was disciplined, right? If I did something wrong, I was spanked. If you listen to the way that I'm even using the words to describe what adults were doing to children in the 80s, it already seems a little bit disturbing, right?
Not everyone is
So
a good
like,
parent.
well, it's like for some reason, we feel like if our child doesn't conform to our demands, we need to inflict pain upon
Hey,
them in order to
what was that
give
thing I
them
said
inflict.
earlier? The root of all evil. It's the
Yeah,
desire
yeah,
to change other people.
yeah, man. Yeah. And the sad thing is that after my DMT trip, I realized that these children are more connected than most of us can ever hope to fucking be.
Right.
So, but yet we are disciplining them and spanking them out of their enlightenment so that we can be more comfortable with the conformity to the fucking delusion that we've become intoxicated by.
There's a way to, I was lucky because Adam, my dad,
Yeah, dude.
as you know,
He's amazing.
he's an enlightened person.
I love that, man.
Just, I don't have any problems saying that. He is also a Freemason.
Yeah.
But, my mom was like, unstable.
Yeah, I've heard stories. But I haven't. The places that I heard the stories from are about as reliable as CNN.
Yeah. In any case, I know what it's like.
When I
But
first started,
they don't know, man. People just don't know how to raise children.
disciplining my son, I spanked him because he wasn't minding, and he was about 4 years old. And you know what he said?
What do you say?
He said, "Dad, why are you doing that? That hurts." And I thought to myself, yeah, I'm not gonna spank this kid anymore. Like, you know what I did? I hugged him and I said, "I'm sorry, bud. I just got upset, and I shouldn't have done that, and I'm not gonna do it again." And after that, he actually minded me better because he didn't feel like I think he was battling with me on stuff. Instead, we were more of a team and he felt safer and trusted me more because he knew I wasn't gonna hurt him just because he wasn't, conforming immediately to my demands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's sad how we
trying
get
to make
used to
it
that.
fun.
A pun?
No fun.
Oh,
When you have fun things to do, there's no reason to like fuck around.
yeah.
Just make it fun. Make learning fun. I think that's
He's
probably
having
one of the
fun right now.
tricks. That's one of the tricks as a parent, is to make learning fun.
Can you hear him yelling?
Is he having fun on Fortnite or whatever?
Yeah, he's playing Apex
Oh,
Legends.
the Apex. Dude, we could be playing that.
Yeah.
Pew, pew,
He's
pew.
good, man. He's training with this one guy who's in like the top 20, and he's supposed to be in a tournament soon that has a $30,000 what do you call
Reward.
it? Number one prize.
Prize, that's dope.
Yeah, man. He's all into it. And it's tough because, I don't want to like support that. Because
Oh, that's
he
great.
sits
No,
on
you
the-
should. That's a good. Any kind of competitive activity, I think, is positive.
I feel like though, as a veteran, that the CIA and the
Oh, fuck
government
that.
has
No, it's just about him and shooting the other guy. There's another guy, another kid on the controller. Nah,
Yeah.
it's not mind control. I don't think so. It's not that sophisticated. I think you're giving him too much credit. Because the way that video game development works is really inefficient in the first place.
what, inefficient for
Just in general.
simulating reality.
No, I mean just like resource-wise. Like, let's just say if the government was putting money into video games, they would be a lot better.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Like that, the proof is in the pudding on that one. The quality ain't there. Government ain't doing it. It's not happening. If anything, I'd say the video game platform is one of the most subversive of all, especially the war games, because they got some of those some really interesting plots, storylines about corruption. Like the main theme throughout video games throughout the 90s till now is like globalism and corporate and military corruption.
Yeah, it's like the real thing that's happening right now.
Yeah, I think that video games are like probably the most subversive of all platforms, like mediums right now. As far as truth to power, that and comedians. Not really movies. It's all freaking like Marvel universe and just regular old bust 'em up, bang bangs.
Who's the picture of on your Aslandi's logo?
As a person?
Yeah, it's like an American flag, 87 LM. It's like a football player or a soccer player.
Oh, that's my I'm in a league,
Oh, okay.
a FIFA league.
Okay, I get it.
That's Jordan Morris, the picture. He's on the Seattle Sounders.
What else do you want to talk about?
Then we were gonna segue into whatever it is your gripe. What's your beef with Jung? What's your newfound
Oh man,
pushback?
pushback? I don't have pushback, dude. I don't have pushback with Jung. Jung was a fucking genius, man, and the reason why is because he was able to integrate his conscious and unconscious and basically take the infinite intelligence that's in his unconscious mind and bring it forward to be the person before you. And Leonardo da Vinci, a person carries a certain persona after that happens that is mystical, you know? They look like they're very cautious about what the fuck they say because they know that they're speaking directly to the illusion, and so they'll have to suffer the ramifications of bringing the truth to light if they speak it. So that's why they all have that cautious look on their face in paintings and in photographs. If you look at Jung's disposition, you know, he has the same look of that Leonardo da Vinci had, and other people that discovered the same thing have. You have to be careful what they say.
How do you think that relates to Jordan Peterson? He has that.
I think Jordan.
He's really careful with what he says. You can tell.
Well, I don't know if Jordan Peterson, honestly, God, I hate to say it, but I think he's an idiot.
Like an idiot. He's like me. Like an idiot savant.
Maybe.
He definitely
you know,
has truth.
well, it's not
He
that
speaks the
I
truth.
shouldn't call him an idiot, because that makes me an idiot. Some of the things he says is so obvious, maybe to me and you, but maybe profound to some people in his audience. The way that he intellectualizes things is just so basic to me that I'm like, why, how does this person have the audience and the level of respect that he has? So maybe I just need to dig into his work more and get into
to me, it's fascinating because it's controversial. Because there's nothing controversial that he says. It's also, like you said, so basic. Like,
that's what I don't understand.
Basic shit ever. But then he's like characterized as being like a right-wing something. But nothing he says is even sounds right-wing to me.
See, that's what confuses me about him. I almost feel like someone is giving him more power and putting him on a pedestal than he deserves, because when I hear him speak, the nature of his discussions is just so basic. But
People call him basically a fascist.
I think I need to expose myself to more of his work, because there has to be some brilliance behind it, or else, I'm assuming, I just haven't encountered it yet.
He's kind of like, do you remember that guy, Joseph Campbell?
Yes, yeah. I love Joseph Campbell.
See, he's kind of like him. He's like someone who's like a Jungian, coming from the Jungian mindset. But Joseph Campbell kind of also was for the layman. You know what I mean? He was kind of of the last generation. They got to kind of translate archetypal and anthropological ideas, history, religion, philosophy to like the age. Jordan Peterson is like the Joseph Campbell of YouTube, of our generation.
Interesting.
He does videos. He did his first thing was called what was it called? Maps of Meaning. It was all about exploring old stories and tales and understanding the archetypal significance of the stories and all that.
I always feel like I think what bothers me about him is he carries an air of arrogance, I think, a little bit. And so I think
that's partially a result of the fact that he has an adversarial world around him.
Like, I've never met anyone truly self-aware that had such an air of arrogance, because the adversarial world becomes a basis for comedy. I mean, it becomes kind of funny in the absence of a true threat. Arrogance in any other situation kind of tickles a little bit, because it's ignorance showing itself. So I have a hard time entertaining his true brilliance because his arrogance is abrasive to my senses, I think, and that might be what's jading my perception of his brilliance, you know, and that might be me, not him.
Well, that makes sense, though. I mean, there's definitely an apparent exterior element of him, or he's trying to like conform to what he thinks people would want to see. But then there's just another element that's his unconscious. Like he has a super activated sort of archetypal unconscious projection going on where he's the truth speaker. So it doesn't matter like what the topic is. He actually takes it really seriously and gives it his best. He gives it his all.
You know
He's
what?
in this mode of like taking shit super serious. And we all get into that mode. Like if you wanted me to debate some certain particular
Oh man.
side of some topic, I could get into that mode, you know, where I take it super seriously. But he just seems to be like, that's his persona. Like that's part of his ego construct. Is
I
that
think I
he's the
know why I
guy
don't
to
like
like
him.
take it seriously. And the thing about him is he's in a world where the doctrine is that you don't take shit seriously. Because it's this postmodernist, nothing is true. Everything is a construct of our imagination and our intellect, yada yada, which is also very materialistic and contrived on its own. And so he does feel like he's fighting back, I think, against sort of like an a-spiritual, a-traditional movement in society, which is probably dangerous. What regardless of what do you think of him?
Yeah. I think
So-
I'm starting to
yeah.
realize as you speak that I probably don't like him because he's a lot like myself. He's probably too similar to me for me not to be you know what I mean? There's something paradoxical about that, about confronting someone who's so much
Totally.
like yourself that you have a hard time pinning you have a hard time placing them within your own psyche because they're basically matching up on all of the points that you use to gauge any difference.
Okay, so what do you think makes a person a coward?
When their emotional prompts show up and in resistance to it, they shore it up with narratives in order to intellectually escape the promptings of the emotional nature without facing it directly.
Alright, say there's like a pile of swords, right? And there's 10 guys in a room.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them like doesn't grab a sword and runs away into the woods. Is that a coward?
No, I wouldn't say so. If his heart compelled him to not fight, then I would say that he's more courageous than the people
What if
seceding
his
to.
family and his wife and his children are there in the village and they're gonna be attacked?
Well, if he's running because he's scared and he's not, if he's running because he's scared and he's not facing his fear, then yeah, I would call him a coward regardless of the context of the situation.
So a coward is someone who makes a decision based on fear.
Or runs from the fear instead of facing it to escape it. That's my perception.
That's a pretty good definition.
It has
What
more
do
to
you
do,
think
I
of that,
think, with
Nimi?
what shows up inside of us and our ability to face it or reject it. Because that's really us that we're rejecting. The fear is also a part of us. It's something inside of us that's been exiled, and the fear is actually the process of it trying to come out, but it's being impeded. So the impedance of the vibration of the emotion shows up as fear because the conscious is not allowing it to flow through. And so a coward is one who allows that to happen and doesn't face it in order to open up that unique conduit of the exiled portion of the
So
psyche.
this gets into a deep concept in Bushido, which is that the truth, if we were trying to relate what we were talking about earlier to this, the truth in
Yeah.
that situation is death. Like, I don't know if does that on its own, does that make sense, or should I elaborate?
No, yeah, that's you know, that's the thing, you know. If I can't say I'm not a coward in the sense of Bushido, because if I'm faced with death, am I gonna succumb to the fear and escape regardless of the context of the situation in order to save myself, or am I going to push through the fear into whatever it is? And most oftentimes it is correlated to death, but a lot of times it's just simply rooted in trauma to avoid having the same situation affect us in the same way again. You know, and it's not always rational. You know, just because somebody was assaulted once or repeatedly by the same individual during their childhood or at a party or during a freak accident doesn't mean that the probability of it happening again is really high, but the brain isn't able to determine the true probability. So it will trigger this, you know, this sympathetic nervous system to promote survival whether the person wants it to or not. And that's where we fall into mental illness and the torture of it. And that's what really made me investigate all the methods of getting into the unconscious mind and processing those fragments of the psyche so that they don't trigger a person and they're not constantly influencing them on a day-to-day basis. Because these people that suffer in this way, which is a lot of people, aren't true. They know they're not truly themselves. They're not truly living a full life. They're not whole. They can't express what's in their heart to be their true self, uninhibited by the fears of judgment, by the fears of, you know, by vulnerability. So, you know, in a sense, I feel like people that don't face that are cowards, but in the same sense, I know that I still have portions of that I don't face, you know, and in that way, I am a coward. So I feel like we're all cowards in certain facets of our experience and our being.
I
But
think about that all the time.
I think we should all have courage, though, you know, to fight. I
Yep.
know it's easier said than done because it is what makes life difficult. But if there is a point to it, you know, then this, in my view, this has to be it. It all points to this one thing for me.
The guiding light is truth. For me. That's all I know. Is try to be true. With my words. But from that, I don't know. I just have faith.
I notice that about you too. When I try to joke around with you and cut up with you a little bit and speak, I don't know, in a joking, condescending way, I guess, kind of. I notice that you a lot of people catch on and they play around, but I notice you reject it immediately, which is great. You know, it's like you're cognitively wired to reject what is not true, and I think that's a beautiful thing. It's beautiful.
It's an unconscious though. To a large, it's like muscle memory.
Yeah.
Like it's a reflex.
It's a double-edged sword too, because if you're in a social setting that demands conformity to a very specific set of rules, I messed it up too. In fact, I'm I may be even compelled to do the opposite just to show contempt
Same.
for the expectation, you know?
Because I'm not a herd animal. Basically.
Yeah.
My mind is not something that you can pen. I'm not interested in having your linguistic games played out in my cognitive structures that I use to conceptualize the world around me. And if you have a problem with that, and you want to take it beyond the conceptual, you roll those dice, and you meet me in the fucking alley. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll stand up for myself in person. Because I'm
Yeah.
not about to have someone else mulling around in my head telling me how I need to conceptualize the world. Whether it's up, down, left, right, flat, fucking four-dimensional, I don't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's our
Yeah.
right. And that's
Yes,
what we
yeah.
have. That's like what we have to fight for right now, I feel like.
Yeah.
We're
My
going to fight
kids are-
for our kids' rights.
They're in school right now, you know, and they're having to conform to all this. So
As long
it's
as they're
difficult
able.
for me to watch.
Hey, I went to public school. I still came out able to think for myself. So, you did too.
Yeah.
It's not
I
impossible.
dropped out in 10th grade.
I dropped out in senior year of high school.
Jesus
I'm just
Christ.
saying, like, this is what I'm saying is that a huge mistake parents make is thinking, delegating the state as the person to raise their kid. And just thinking that they can just send the kid to public school. And then their kid's going to be coming back a whole raised human being. Because it's
Yeah.
mostly the parents. I would say it's like should be 90% parents, 10% state.
And then they get upset because the things are happening at school that are outside of the staff's control, and they feel like their children are being raised improperly. But it's like,
You're
you
the
know,
one who's supposed to raise them.
yeah.
That's a problem.
When I neglect my child, God damn it, you better expose them to information conducive to my individual, unique, preferential programming.
And
Yeah.
you better believe there's special interests who have their hand in what is taught
Like
in schools.
I've gotten so tired of the bullshit. Like in the morning, my son comes down and he's like, "Dad, can I have a donut?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Why?" I said, "If anyone's gonna have the pleasure of tasting sweet things in this house, God damn it, it's gonna go through me first. I decide whether you
That's right.
whether you
That's
enjoy
the man of the house.
Yeah, I decide whether you experience the pleasure of tasting sweet things."
That's
And
important,
he looked at me like, "What the fuck?" I said, "Eat a donut. You don't have to fucking ask me. Just don't eat too much, you know? Like I don't want you to get heavy. I want you to be healthy, you know, and not be too overweight."
They gotta get him running around on the soccer pitch.
But it's like I'm like, "Why are you asking me?" "Well, because I'm supposed to." And I'm like, "Well,
That's good.
I know it's good, but it's like I don't want someone to have to ask me whether they can stick something in their fucking mouth."
Hey, you can't have it. That's on you now. You can't have it both ways. You should just accept that. You have some humility, Randall. Accept
I
the fact
do.
that you are, in fact, the patriarch of the house.
Well, now that he's 13, I'm trying to get him to entertain the idea that, you know, he doesn't have to ask me for everything in his life, you know? Like,
The hard part is going to be pulling him aside and telling him, "Hey, look, kid, I'm not going to be able to support this family forever. You're going to have to go out there in the world,
dude,
and support us." And I know I kind of abbreviated the speech there, but that's, how about that conversation? Have fun with that one.
it didn't
That's a
fully
real
hit me till my dad died. How
Right?
that's when I really realized that the torch is in my hands, and
you know, like there's no going back, you know?
Imagine having that talk to kid, man. It's tough. There's gonna come a day when I'm not here anymore, and it's gonna be up to you. And that is like, to me, that's more important than all this superficial political and agenda and bullshit. You know what I'm talking about? The shit that's on the
Yeah.
news, the shit people are marching about. They're overlooking that part. Is it? It's time for us to hand the torch on to the next generation in a good way, and give them something good to work with, and stop being a bunch of little, just fucking around.
Yeah, man. I've been thinking about that a lot too. Like I want to teach my son a trade, so I feel like everyone should know at least one trade so they have something to fall back on, and maybe even engage in a second trade so that there's never a question about whether they can provide for themselves and their family. So that's what I'm trying to do right now, actually, because the oil field is slowing down. And you know what happened today? A friend of mine, we're talking about cryptocurrency, starting our own
Okay,
Bitcoin.
crypto, get into it. Talk into it.
Yeah, we're gonna start our own company. My two business partners are trying to raise $100 million from people that they know. Yep.
That's a lot of millions.
Yeah, man. So my job is to do the mining portion. So right now, I am researching. Well, it's kind of a secret, but basically, I'm trying to create proprietary mining machines capable of mining faster than the ASIC ant miners. And it's not. I don't think it's going to be hard to do, but it's going to take money to make it happen. And it's a really cool idea. I'll talk to you about it offline. But I'm trying to remember.
Give us a little bit of a rundown from how you got from the military into fracking, and then from fracking into cryptocurrency.
Well, I wasn't in fracking. I was in drilling, industrial drilling fluid engineering. So, which sounds kind of odd, right? But what it is when we drill an 18,000 foot well that's 6.5 inches in diameter, there's thousands of tons of earth that is removed from the hole because of the depth, the 3 to 4 mile deep hole in the ground. And what the drilling fluid does is I have to engineer 500,000 gallons plus of fluid in order to displace the hole and keep the hole clean during the dynamic drilling operation. So, and that consists of
lubed up.
Yeah, keep it lubed up, keep it cooled off, keep it. The density of the fluid has to be regulated, weight in pounds per gallon. The viscosity of the fluid has to be maintained in a certain range so that it will actually carry solids through the annulus, which is the space between the drill string and the formation. I have to, if we drill into cracks and crevices, I have to be able to seal those up with different products. So I do chemistry testing on the fluid too, and I have to monitor that and chemically alter the fluid to keep it within very specific range of specifications. When I got out of the military, I was in the bomb squad, explosive ordnance disposal. So I was able to use those credentials to get a job as an engineer and a chemist in engineering drilling fluid. And so I did that for the last 13 years. But I saw a lot of things happen environmentally that I didn't agree with. People contaminating the soil and the groundwater and trying to cover it up. So
can you tell us anything about that?
Yeah, I can. I won't tell you who I was working with, obviously, but because they'll sue the fuck out of me if I did. But I worked with companies. Yeah, large corporations. Where we spilled oil on the ground like 1,000 barrels, which is 4,200 gallons, 4,200 gallons of oil, and it happened at nighttime, so nobody saw it because the fluid was oil-based. It was dark.
Did it make the news?
No, they covered it up. They buried it in the ground. And later I found out that the contamination concentration for water is 1 part per million when mixed with oil. So one gallon of oil contaminates 1 million gallons of water. So if you take 4,200 gallons of oil that spilled on the ground
It's
and
40
you
million.
convert, it's 4,200,000,000
Oh,
gallons of water.
4 billion. I've missed a zero there.
Yeah, so when we're out there, people don't take it very seriously because they don't realize but that oil made it into the water table, and if it'll contaminate 4 billion gallons of water, that's like a 10-mile radius of contaminated water. So anyway, that was just one incident, and that stuff happens all the time. And there was another case where I actually called OSHA in private on the company that I was working for.
Oh, you should tell us that.
Yeah,
It's okay. You didn't
just
do it.
kidding.
It was in a video game.
Yeah. Oh, but crypto. So later I got into crypto. Yeah.
So how'd that
But
segue
actually
into crypto?
today the guys that I'm working with, one of their family members is a vice president of a large environmental company, and he said that if I send in my resume, then they'll give me a job doing that, and that's really what I want to do because I want to be a part of the solution, not the problem. So that's what I'm transitioning over to. I'm going from engineering on the drilling side to environmental.
And you're an expert. Now, what was that telling? Now,
I'm good at what I do, I think.
remind me again of what you said. Could that weapon you saw on 9/11 in that video, could that be CG or edited, or is that for sure exactly what that would look like from your
So
personal perspective?
if someone created it with CG animation, what would be the motive? Just to create a YouTube video that makes it look like something else is hitting the building, or
Even as a disinformation, like could be a government, could also be government disinformation. To make
That's
something, to make stuff less believable.
That's interesting you say that because from the interviews and documents that I've seen of ex-CIA agents that engage in psychological warfare with the populace and create fake stories in order to guide public perception, one of the mills that is used to generate such types of misinformation is just basically these people competing on what story can be used in a specific way to guide public perception in a specific direction. So, I might not see any correlations there to that, but there very well might be some. I hadn't considered it because I feel like I recognized it as what it is. I don't feel like that it was used like that because the number of people that would even, it was presented as like, what is this? It looks like an aircraft, but it's not a missile.
Could the whole thing have been edited? Here's another question. Could there have been no plane at all?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And just the weapon you're talking about?
The level of misinformation in order to orchestrate something like that is so big that, you know, that's the thing that's paradoxical about 9/11 is it's almost certainly a red herring inside terrorist attack on our own people, but the level of the number of people and the level of covering up that is required to pull that off are so immense that it's staggering. It's like there's a video of a broadcaster announcing that Building 7 has collapsed and it's standing in the background. Like they broadcasted it too early.
I've seen it.
Like they were
I mean,
timing
it was
the
a
broadcast.
BBC. It could be a just honest mistake.
An honest mistake that the building that was going to collapse later hadn't
Maybe
collapsed yet.
they reported it wrong, because the other one had fallen down.
Yeah, but then shortly after that, Building 7 crimped in the middle and fell in its own footprint and wasn't hit by an aircraft.
Well, that's why I'm so safe with my words, and I just say the official report that came out was not forensic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was purely not forensic. That's my... So I don't really have... I'm trying to stay from a neutral standpoint where...
Yeah.
I'm saying what is the official report is not correct. It's not based on forensic evidence in investigation. If you look at what I was talking about, those pictures of the cars on the bridges, they're like a husk. And they're miles away.
What's a husk?
A husk of a car, I mean. Like a husk, you know how a corn has a husk?
Yeah, like the shell?
Yeah. It's just like all that's left of these cars is just like, if you went and poked it, it would just disintegrate. Like it's just like a...
So it was staged?
No, the cars are destroyed from it. Whatever it was enough of an explosion to incinerate and annihilate motor vehicles miles away.
Oh, okay, I see. Send me the picture or video.
You want to see it right now, and then you can comment on it?
Well, a lot of this stuff, I think, we might be experiencing this because a lot of this stuff is just designed to throw us off.
No, this is just footage from the bridges that day. Like this is for sure not staged. This is people went and took pictures of these things. Let me find one.
Interesting. We seem to get derailed on our subject matter.
Yeah, but it all comes around to the same thing.
Yeah. So, Bitcoin. So a lot of people don't know this, but I made quite a bit on Bitcoin. Several $1 million. That's how I bought the house on Fox Island out there. So I learned a lot about mining, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start a mining company, but we're gonna build our own chips, our own ASIC chips. And it's gonna be super cool. Because I have this idea for a software program that improves the efficiency of mining by running a secondary algorithm on the SHA-256, which is the algorithm Bitcoin runs on. And then we're going to use a specific, unique chipset that works in unison with that program that runs multiple copies of it in order to process more efficiently. Wait, maybe I shouldn't have said that. I don't think No, that's about right. Yeah, that's as vague as I can be. Yeah, but I'm going to be working hard on that. like really hard, because I want that to happen, because now's the perfect time. And we got to get that business going, me and you.
Exactly.
We just got to make it happen, man.
No, no.
Hip action, dude.
I think the internet has scrubbed. Yeah, they scrubbed it. I don't think you can find these images anymore.
Oh crap. That's usually a sign that it was real.
Should have saved some of them.
How long is this gonna go?
Well, we could be just about done. It's been productive conversation.
Are you gonna chop and screw it?
Eventually, I'll go ahead and edit out a couple of chunks that were really important.
Cool. There's some. We can move into some really good information.
Yeah,
I think
lay it
that
on me.
I think everybody should know. The World Economic Forum is comprised of a group of billionaires to include the current descendants of the Rothschild dynasty, the Mark Zuckerberg, the current descendants of George Soros, and several other very well-known, mega-rich, elite people, descendants of these families. And they get together every year at the World Economic Forum to decide the future fate of the planet, and just basically to decide what's going to happen economically, what corporations can do to contribute, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing is that they're determining, based on their agendas, what's going to happen before it happens. So if people stay in the loop on the information that is delivered in the World Economic Forum conventions, then they will have a forward projection of what is going to happen. Because it is my belief that you can take the statements and propositions of billion and trillionaires as the future historical facts. The leader of the board for the World Economic Forum, his last name is Schwab. I forget his first name, but he wrote a book called COVID the Great Reset, and released it 2 months after COVID hit. And a lot of people found that quite odd, because it takes at least a year to write, edit, and publish a book. But anyhow, he released a book 2 months after COVID hit called COVID the Great Reset, and he released another book recently called The Fourth Industrial Revolution. And in the Fourth Industrial Revolution book, he outlines very specific measures that will be taken and that are planned on being taken to create or institute a new industrial revolution.
You've read these books?
Yes, yep.
And
in
they've
his
been
book,
published?
yeah, they've both been published. You can find them. You can find them on Amazon.
Is it like that shit that fucking things that say they want to annihilate humans?
You mean Agenda 21?
The Stones.
The Stones?
The Georgia Stones.
Oh, the Guidestones, yeah.
Guidestones.
What he says in his book is that they're going to institute a global cryptocurrency, and that we're in need of a reset. So China's already, I don't know if you know this or not, but the Chinese government got rid of paper money, and they are now on digital currency, the digital yuan.
Okay.
So they've gotten rid of paper money altogether in China.
Like it's not worth anything?
Yep.
So if you had it in cash, it's no good?
I think what they usually do, I don't know what they did, but usually they give you a period of time, like 1 month, to take all your paper money and turn it into a bank, and they'll put it into digital
That's
form,
fucked
just
up,
like,
dude. Is that what we have coming?
That's what we have coming. That's why now is the best time to get into cryptocurrency, because when they intentionally collapse the economy and to have a reason to move it over to digital currency, everyone's going to flock to Bitcoin because they're not going to trust the government, and that's going to cause it to get hyperinflated. And this is what we're basically preparing for, which is why we want to get a mining business going.
All I want to do is play music.
Hey, in these times, that's a noble aspiration, because we are living in fucked up times.
It is fucked up, man.
Yeah.
Dude, so how do we turn the... I want to just make a regular economy work.
You know, I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking about getting a group of friends together and buying a piece of land and starting a farm and going completely, self-sustaining, and then basically creating a commune, a fraternity commune, or a cult, if you will.
Don't
Not
call it
really.
a cult.
Yeah, I know. No, a community commune where everyone offers their services free of charge to everybody else. So you have people of all trades that, we're all just helping each other, and we could have some system of measuring how much we're helping other people and they're helping us, so that there's some free, or there's some balanced give and take in that system. But something just as simple as where it's a barter system, and it's just a barter system. I've seen a system based on tokens where one token is 1 hour of labor. Yeah. And you just trade 1 hour of your labor for 1 hour of someone else's services, and then you just change the token over to the other person's hands.
I don't think there's anything wrong with currency in principle.
I don't
it's
either.
a fiat currency that's controlled by powers that can control the inflation, the value, maximize, multiply it, all that shit. That's the problem. Currency's fine. Like, currency makes sense to me.
They say, there's a quote that says, "Profits are the unpaid wages of the poor."
Right, but it's the thing is that what I was saying earlier, when we can get paid, that is the best. People should get paid. Like, I want to be able to pay people to do stuff for me. If I'm rich.
Yeah.
If I make a bunch of money, I want to make other people's life better by doing a job for me and paying them really good. Like, that makes sense to me. And there is an incentive there. Like, as weird as it is, a lot of people, when they get into positions of power, they actually want to just give back, and they don't know how. They need fucking a way to do it.
Yeah.
I say use the system. You're born into it. Use it for good.
I'm thinking about getting out of the United States, because
But you're in Colorado. You're in the middle. Can't get out.
Yeah. I know.
You have to walk for miles.
Moving toward a global economy, we are living in a world now where we can move to whatever country best suits. If you look, there's actually the top 100 countries or top 50 countries with the best standard of living, and some of the countries, the income is 4 times what you need to live on, just naturally, based on the minimum wage and the average pay and the average cost of everything. And we're like really low on the list, like 40.
Dude, if we had something like that lighting business, and we just came to the U.S. to do it for a couple months every year, you could live somewhere fat. could live like
Yeah.
a king somewhere in the Philippines or whatever.
I have some hippie friends that, moved to Costa Rica, rented land for very cheap. Like I'm talking like $90 a month with a bungalow on it, and it had lots of mango trees. And so they just started cutting the mangoes and drying it and sending fresh organic mango slices back to the United States and started their own brand.
Mangoes. I could go for mango right now.
Dude, in Hawaii, the mangoes are huge and they're so. I've never had a mango as good as the ones I ate in Hawaii. Just like, and they're so big, like when you cut them, there's so much meat on them. They're like the size of a normal. They're like on both sides. They're the size of a normal mango you'd get here. So it's just
Man.
like, yeah,
Oof, that's
just
not good.
a huge mouthful of mango, and it's so fresh. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. Anyway, we need to stay on interesting topics.
No, I
Not-
think that's a good way to segue out of it into the good. That's like
Yeah.
the prime quality pro of life is a mango, a big fat mango.
Fuck yeah, man. Imagine living in Costa Rica where they're just everywhere. And coconuts and papayas and there's wild macaws flying
Oh, that
around.
sounds amazing.
Yeah, man.
It sounds
Like-
fucking amazing.
Do you know, like, okay, my uncle went to Fiji. And he bought a shipping container. This is my stepmother's brother. I still call him my uncle. He bought a shipping container that was all self-contained, had solar panels and everything. And he dropped it on a beach that he had leased. And the I guess Tahiti has like a tribe that's owned it, or not Tahiti. Fiji has had a tribe that owns it for a long time. And the leader came down just to see what he was doing, and with his entourage, and was just like, okay, cool. I was just checking, like just a normal, like casual conversation with the leader of Tahiti or Fiji. Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, the point is that a lot of these tropical communities that are just operating naturally, like they have
I
for
see
so
you,
long.
Road and Thunder. Road and Thunder, my dude. Keep on
What?
going.
Who?
Keep telling your
Yeah,
story.
man. No, that's it. What's next?
He thinks I'm high. Hey, one message. Hey, thank you, Nimmy. Hey, we're having fun. Here on the Aslandy Show. I think this is going to see us out. I mean, we covered a lot. We covered a lot of ground tonight.
Yeah, man.
It's been a
Bitcoin.
pleasure.
Bitcoin's where it's at.
Okay, pushing the Bitcoin. I feel that. Let's move in that direction. Get some Bitcoins. I'll buy 10 or 20 coins from you.
That'll be 200,000.
Okay. Well, better get in early.
Yeah.
How much is one Bitcoin?
Today actually it passed 20,000. For the first time in a while. I'm gonna check right now. See what it's at. Someone will probably type it in.
How many do you own?
It's at 21,821. Whoo!
You got a couple of them?
Maybe.
All right, buddy. It's been fun.
Maybe.
It's
What, you
been
getting off?
fun. Yeah, I think we're gonna do it. We're gonna call it
Okay.
a night.
No, at one time I had the biggest transaction I ever did in one day was 80 Bitcoin. Today I have cryptocurrency hidden away, but I'm not going to
He's not
access it.
at liberty to discuss this issue.
Yeah, man. If something crazy happens, you'll know, because I'll be like, hey man, you gotta create a wallet. I gotta send you something. All right, man, we're gonna call it.
It's been a lot of fun having you. It's my pleasure. Thank you for coming on and giving your wisdom.
Yeah, man.
And I can't wait to clip this stuff up, put it on YouTube.
I look forward to it. We should do this again, because we need to talk about COVID.
Oh yeah, bring it. You didn't even tell us about your COVID thing.
Yeah, so I contracted COVID-19.
Tell me about it, and I'll see it in the future. Just tell me. Keep talking.
Okay. My son, it's actually SARS-CoV-2, so it's a SARS virus, I guess, according to the code. But we're calling it the coronavirus for some reason. But anyway, my son tested positive for it. He had the antibody test, which is 98% accurate. And then all of us caught it. And it started with a sore throat, and then it slowly moved down into my upper respiratory system. And then it was there for a day and a half. I looked up research on what to do when exposed to the virus, because I didn't expect to contract it so quickly. And I found research that showed that nebulizing, which is basically vaporizing, nebulizing different essential oils in studies had shown that antiviral essential oils could help kill the virus in the lungs. And so based on those studies, I started using nebulized eucalyptus and breathing it, and that helped me a lot. It helped keep it cut back, and then in like 2 days I got over it. I was taking supplements of vitamin C, zinc, and potassium, because based on research studies, those were 3 of the main supplements that if your body has a deficiency in, including vitamin D, the virus has a lot higher probability of killing you. So this was 18 days ago. The symptoms persisted for still today. I have a few symptoms, and they have what's called there's a new designation for a disease, which basically is saying in so many words that COVID-19 is something that doesn't go away that they know of. So even though you get through the symptoms of the lung infections or whatever, there's long-term effects that extend out to 3 months plus that they're finding in some people. So I still have some symptoms. But anyway, it moved from my lungs into my kidneys. My kidneys started to hurt, so I started eating foods to cleanse my kidneys. Then it moved into my liver and my intestines, and then it moved into my testicles. And my testicles were inflamed. That was fun. It hurt like hell. And then it moved up into my brain, and I still have effects from that. So I don't know what it's doing in my brain. I've been looking at research. There's not a lot of research that shows exactly what it does. But yeah. So I caught the COVID. I'm not contagious anymore, so but I'm planning on giving my plasma to help people get over it that are in the hospital, because they say it improves people's odds of survival by 60%. So if I can give as much plasma as possible to those people, I'll be able to sleep a little bit better at night, because there's a lot of people, presumably, if the numbers, if they're not just fucking outright lying to us about the numbers, and calling everything from pneumonia to the fucking to the flu and heart disease and everything else COVID, then hopefully it'll be some benefit to somebody.
Mm-hmm. I hope that it is.
There's a couple of countries that have taken all the numbers from all of the other illnesses, and like there's absolutely no change in mortality across the entire board. And in some countries, the actual number of people that have died altogether from all causes has gone down, even though they're reporting high COVID deaths. So like there's obviously some transference of like pneumonia and other things that they're calling COVID that must not actually be that, because the overall deaths have decreased from all causes. But yet they're showing,
there's money in it.
Yeah, it's such bullshit, dude. I mean, even though I have it, even though I have it, and there's like a 98% success rate. And if you see how many unhealthy fucking people there are out there, I think that's pretty good odds, because half of these people are fucking gonna die tomorrow anyway, that are being killed by it. And
I mean, I could die tomorrow. I'll be humble and just say that, like, look, it's been good knowing you.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm a bit cynical.
Point, though? If we can't move on into a society that is stoic about death, then I don't even care about that society. I'll stay in my own little weird world.
You sound just as stoned as you are tired.
I'm struggling. But the truth is still being told.
You're so...
As long as what I speak is truth. It's better to die and have lived
your unwavering dedication
than to survive
Aslandi's viewers.
And never live.
Good Lord. All right, man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody that I can't see because I'm on Discord.
Say hi. Good night, Nimmermoon.
Good night, everyone.